Questions are power, but every kind of power demands a price. Use them to silence others, and you become a manipulator. Use them to awaken others, and you become a philosopher. Socrates, the man who never lost a single debate, not because he always had the best answer, but because he never entered a debate to win. While others strained to defend their opinions, he asked, quietly, one question at a time, each one sharpened like a blade, cutting through logic, illusion, and ego until the argument collapsed under its own weight. He never shouted. He never tried to sound brilliant. He used silence and reason, weapons few possess, and fewer still know how to use. And today, I will give you 5 questions, not just for debate, but for control of conversations, of decisions, of the battlefield between minds. These questions are known as the Socratic Method. If you master them, you won't need to argue. You'll simply reveal the weakness that was always there. But know this, power without restraint becomes corruption. This method is not for those who seek applause. It is for those who seek mastery over others and over themselves. Before I give you the 5, we must first understand why asking always defeats arguing, and why these questions are not weapons of attack, but instruments of liberation. When someone argues, they build a tower of words, proudly, definitely. But every tower rests on a foundation. Remove one brick from its base, and the whole thing collapses. The questioner does not build, the questioner digs. And when the ground gives way, nothing remains. A question is invisible, yet it carries the weight of truth. You cannot lose when you ask. A statement can be wrong. A genuine question, never. Here lies the psychological edge. Arguments trigger defense. Questions provoke thought. Socrates knew the ego always wants to be right, so he never fought it. He simply handed the other person the map and asked them to follow it. And when they reached the edge, they discovered the ground beneath them was not stone, but sand. It was never about winning. It was about awakening, not just the opponent, but the self. So now, let us begin. Question number 1. How do you know that's true? It sounds simple, almost too soft to matter. But this question is the seed of collapse. Everyone holds beliefs, but very few can explain where those beliefs came from. They say, everyone knows that. I read it somewhere. It's just obvious. But behind those answers lies emptiness. No examination, no foundation, only repetition. Most people don't live by thinking. They live by echo. They believe what's loudest, not what's truest. That success requires a degree, that happiness is the same as wealth, that certain people are beyond questioning. But when you ask them, how do you know that's true? They go quiet. And in that silence, their belief begins to bleed. Because if they can't name the root, then they've never held truth, only emotion, dressed up as logic. Socrates knew what is unexamined controls you. A belief that's never questioned is a leash around the neck. One afternoon in Athens, a young man confronted Socrates. Your philosophy is useless, he said. Reality is the only truth. Socrates smiled and replied with a single question. How do you know that's true? The young man answered, because everyone says so. Socrates leaned in. Everyone, or you? No one remembers what the young man said after that, only that he walked away, silent. For the first time in his life, he realized he had never truly thought. That is the power of this question. In the real world, don't argue. Ask. When someone says, that can't be done, ask, are you sure? Based on whose experience? When someone says, you're going to fail, ask, what makes you so certain? Then stop. Say nothing. Let silence do what shouting cannot. It forces them to hear themselves. And for those ready to go deeper, ask the advanced form. What would have to be true for that to be false? That one question flips the ground beneath them, forces them to see the blind spot their ego protects. And sometimes, that's all it takes to make even the loudest fall into quiet. Question number 2. What are you assuming? Every argument is an iceberg. What's spoken is the surface. But what sustains it, what holds it up, are the assumptions no one ever questions. This is where most minds collapse, because they've never looked beneath their own thoughts. Take this statement. Everyone should go to college because it leads to good jobs. On the surface, reasonable. But underneath, they're assuming that everyone defines success the same way. That money is life's ultimate measure. That college always leads to opportunity. 3 assumptions, none examined. Remove just one, and the argument begins to shake. This is what makes this question so powerful. It doesn't destroy through attack. It destroys through awareness. It turns on the light and reveals the invisible scaffolding of belief. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Why? Because most people don't suffer from truth. They suffer from what they've assumed. They say, "I need others to approve of me." But they never ask, "What makes me believe I need that?" A young soldier once asked Marcus Aurelius, "How do I avoid being offended?" Marcus replied, "Understand that words cannot offend unless you assume they can." Assumption creates pain, and this question is the blade that cuts through it. It's a mirror, one most people have never stood in front of. How to use it? When someone says, "I'm not good enough," ask, "Compared to who?" That question dissolves the illusion of comparison, one of the deepest roots of suffering. When they say, "Everyone should go to college," ask, "Are you assuming everyone wants the same kind of life?" That is how you cut through argument, not by overpowering it, but by showing it to itself. Because sometimes, seeing the foundation is enough to bring down the house. Question number 3. What evidence would change your mind? This is the line, the dividing line between the one who seeks truth and the one who worships belief. A rational mind says, "If new evidence appears, I'll reconsider." But the blind believer says, "Nothing will ever change my mind." And the moment they say that, you don't need to argue anymore. They've already confessed. They're no longer thinking. They've built a shrine to their opinion, and they've knelt in front of it. This question is feared, not because it attacks, but because it reveals. If someone can't tell you what would change their view, then their view isn't based on logic. It's based on identity. And once belief becomes identity, logic is no longer invited. Try it in the real world. Someone says crypto is a scam. Ask, what kind of evidence would make you rethink that? If they say nothing, you've already won. Not because you're right, but because they've shown you they're not willing to think. They've stopped at certainty. And certainty is the enemy of growth. Epictetus taught, "No man can learn what he thinks he already knows." That's what this question is, a test of humility. If they can't name the kind of evidence that would prove them wrong, then they've already chained themselves to illusion. How to use this? When someone pushes their beliefs onto you, don't resist. Don't argue. Ask, if new facts appeared, would you be open to re-examining your view? If they say no, you've seen the limit of their mind. If they say yes, then you've just opened a door to truth, not by force, but by invitation. Question number 4. What would someone who disagrees with you say? Most people believe they understand the world, but what they truly understand is only their side of it. They don't see opposing views. They dismiss them, not with comprehension, but with mockery or silence. And that's the weakness this question exposes. What would someone who disagrees with you say? This question forces the mind to step outside its own skin, something most never do. The weak want to win, the smart want to argue, but the wise want to understand, even those who oppose them, because wisdom is not echo, it's reflection. If you can't explain the opposing view, then you don't fully understand the issue. Someone says, capitalism is the best system. You ask, what would someone who disagrees with you say? And if they reply, they're just lazy or jealous, they've already admitted they've never truly listened. Marcus Aurelius once told his son to understand another man's argument better than he does himself. That is the height of wisdom. This question trains that. Picture this: a discussion at a military academy. A young officer says, "The army is fair. If you break the rules, you're punished." An older instructor leans forward and asks, "And what if the rule itself was written by a corrupt man?" The room falls silent. That's the power of perspective. It opens doors they never knew existed. In a political argument, don't counter. Ask, if you were born in another country, would you still think the same? In a personal conflict, ask, if you were in my place, how would you feel? One question. And suddenly, the room isn't filled with defense, but with reflection. Because this question doesn't strike the mind, it reaches the soul. Question number 5. What would happen if everyone thought like you? This is the question that ends the illusion, not by arguing with it, but by scaling it, by testing it at full weight. Someone says, people should do whatever they want, as long as they don't hurt anyone. It sounds noble. But you ask, what would happen if everyone thought like that? Suddenly the cracks appear, because now they must define. What counts as hurt? What about long-term harm, emotional pain, cultural decay? And quickly, the noble idea becomes unstable. Socrates called this method reductio ad absurdum, pushing a belief to its extreme and seeing if it still holds. If it collapses under its own weight, then it was never truth, only convenience, dressed as principle. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What is right cannot be right only for you. It must be right for all." A true belief must survive beyond one person's comfort, because if an idea breaks the moment it's applied to everyone, it isn't truth. It's selfishness with a mask. So when someone says, "Relax, it was just a small lie," ask, if everyone lied a little, would trust still exist? When they say, "I did it because everyone does it," ask, if everyone thought that way, who would be the first to stop? This question is not about judgment, it's about vision. It shows people the consequences they refuse to face, and in that reflection, the illusion of moral safety shatters, because a belief that only works for you isn't a principle, it's a weapon. Now, burn it into your mind. Questions are blades, but blades can turn. The wise warrior doesn't just know how to strike, he knows how to stand when struck. The Socratic Method, when used with precision, disarms without force, but only when guided by discipline, not ego. This is your battlefield manual for using the method with mastery and surviving it with honor. These 5 questions are not weapons of arrogance. They are instruments of awakening. They belong not to the manipulator, but to the master of the self. Socrates was not feared for his answers, but for his questions, not because they harmed, but because they revealed. And for that, he was sentenced to death. Not because he lied, but because he unraveled lies too well. Use these questions not to corner, but to clarify, not to crush, but to call forth thought where none existed. And remember, even truth becomes tyranny when wielded without restraint. Apply with precision across all domains. In the workplace, ask, what's the risk if we're wrong? You will gain strategy, not chaos. In negotiation, ask, what will happen if nothing changes? Let them see the cost of inaction, not feel your pressure. In parenting, ask, What do you think is the consequence here? That's not punishment, that's ownership. In love, ask, what would help you feel understood? Because often, the right question saves more than any right answer. One day, you will face someone loud, someone clever, someone angry. Remember this, you don't need to shout to be right. You only need to ask softly and watch the truth reveal itself. The Socratic Method was never about domination. It was about freedom from illusion. The 5 questions are yours now, but use them first on yourself. Because the Stoic philosopher does not seek to win, he seeks to see clearly. And the one who sees clearly writes the rules. If this message sharpened your mind, if it made you rethink how you speak, act, and listen, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you never miss a future lesson. Not for me, but for the discipline of your own mind. Leave just 3 words in the comments. I choose awareness. I am Gaius Magnus, and this is your reminder. Don't play the game, write the rules.